These are the four prices that an avoidant will have to pay when they lose you. Now, I know up until this point it has been very hard to feel like the avoidant is affected by anything to do with this breakup because they have this stonewall effect where it seems like they're unbothered by this, right? They seem like they're almost even thriving and they're happy and they're living their life as if nothing has happened at all. And this can be very confusing and frustrating to you because you are essentially being so affected by this breakup, and yet they're just acting as if you're just a stranger and if you guys are just passed by and you guys are just going your separate ways. But the thing that we have to understand is that there is going to be a delay with the avoidant, and they're going to have some type of reaction and price to pay when it comes to this. And the first is that the price begins with their emotional emptiness. Now, what this essentially is that over time, they begin to feel empty emotionally, right? They start to really get face to face with what is really going on and realizing how much value you have brought into their life emotionally. You've made them feel understood, made them feel cared about, all these different wonderful things that they essentially have taken for granted. They essentially believe that they can create that in some other way or some form, or maybe even finding it with somebody else. But what they essentially realize is that they are not going to be able to replicate you and the feelings that you gave them. So when they are alone, when they're really face to face with this, they're going to have to sit with this and realize how much they're essentially losing in you emotionally. They will put up a fight here and deny it and make themselves try to just think of other things and distract themselves to make them try to push past this, because it is naturally going to bring up some unwanted emotions, because this is essentially what happens when somebody has that realization. So it only makes sense when it comes to an avoidant that they're going to do everything in their powers to avoid having that happen. Inevitably, it is going to come up and they're going to start to feel that emptiness over time, which leads perfectly into number two, and that is they start to have internal conflict between freedom and connection. Now, what this essentially is that there's two parts of them that's going on here, right? There's a part of them that wants that freedom to have to not deal with any emotions and vulnerabilities and conflicts and just essentially have the relationship go the way they want. And that is them not having to open up or express emotions and have things be in a way that it's going to support their needs and their wants, which is essentially them having the minimal amount of emotions that they have to feel and express to you. However, there's an other side of them that craves the connection that they have with you, which this is going to naturally conflict, because the way that they're going to gain that connection, which they know deep down, is to allow themselves to open up and express those emotions and want to get close to you and deal with any of those conflicts that's needed to do that. But they know that that is going to have to compromise that freedom that they essentially want, which is them not having to deal with any of this, right? They simply do not want to have to do anything when it comes to that, right? They just want things to go smoothly. They don't want any conflict. And that's just not what happens in a relation typically, right? I know that it's not healthy to always have conflicts all the time, but you are going to naturally have things come up where you're going to have to try to work on it as a couple, and you're going to feel vulnerable in certain instances because you're going to be opening up and expressing emotions, and it's just what naturally comes with the relationship. But this is a threat to that avoidant because they don't want to ever experience that, right? They want to do everything in their powers to stay away from that, but they are going to be faced with this conflict because they do want to have that connection with you, right? The only problem is that they want that connection to be the way that they want, which is not going to work in a healthy relationship with you because you want it to be mutual. Number three is that they are going to start to feel regret for losing the one person that understood them the most. This is a big part of what's going to happen here because they are going to realize how much you cared for them, how much patience you had with them, and really wanted to do everything that you possibly could to try to make this relationship work. Up until this point, they never saw it, right? They took it for granted, and they essentially just thought that you were going to always be this way no matter what. But once they start to realize that you are no longer willing to do that, that's when it starts to hit them the magnitude of what's happening here, and that they are going to lose somebody who really genuinely wanted to try to make things work, even with this avoidant attachment style, right? you were so patient with this. You tried to do everything that you possibly could to get this person to see how this avoidant attachment style is hurting the relationship, and how you were willing to just allow them to gradually start to work on this. You weren't expecting them to just make this big leap and change overnight, but you did want them to make some effort into wanting to show that they actually wanted to be in the relationship by making those steps to changing this. But they inevitably didn't. And this is what happens to where they essentially come to that realization that they're not going to find somebody who's going to be as willing to put up with them as you have been. And no matter how much they try to spin this and make themselves feel good about it, this is going to be prevalent in their mind, and they're not going to be able to escape this reality, which essentially causes them to have a huge amount of regret, because they start to realize how this facade that they were putting up is really not based on reality, and they're going to have to deal with those emotions that are going to come up from that. And number 4 is that this is going to have a long-term effect on them in their relationships if this avoidant doesn't try to work on this. This is going to bleed over even more, and it's essentially going to compound every single time this avoidant goes from one relationship to another and doesn't work on this. It's with anything in life. We know that for the most part, when it comes to anything that we're trying to work on or deal with on a mental level, if we don't address it right then and there and do what's necessary, it is going to inevitably compound over time. And we're going to essentially have this blow up to where if we just took that time in that beginning to start to work on it, we would have been able to get to a place where we were actually healed from it and not have that happen. But typically when it comes to an avoidant, their defense mechanism in their mind that keeps them this way is so strong and prevalent that they tend to just continue to keep allowing this to compound over time, right? It's going to take some time and real effort to try to work through this, because again, this avoidant attachment style didn't happen overnight. It happened over a long period of time when they were young, and chances are there's a part of them that doesn't really recognize that this is going on, because they became so used to this as being who they were that they don't even realize how much this is causing damage in the relationships, right? They'll see some instances here and there, but they really have to take a step back and understand how much this is causing a lot of damage and hurt into every relationship that they're in. They will at some point in time realize that, whether it's with you or the next person or whatever it might be, but that's essentially out of your hands, and you have no control over when that is going to happen. Again, you did your part in trying to just work with this person and hopefully help guide them to this realization, and they just simply did not and weren't ready to realize it and make the changes that are needed. But what I hope you take away from this video is understanding that you will win in the end from this, because you did everything that you possibly could. You exhausted all of your resources and energy and effort into trying to make things work, and they just simply were not willing to do that. There's nothing more that you could have done, and you can feel good about that. I know it still hurts to lose this person because you genuinely wanted to be in a relationship with them, because when their avoidant attachment style wasn't triggered, the relationship was actually good and you could see yourself actually having a healthy relationship with this person, but they could never really get out of their way. And that's what sucks about it. But at the end of the day, you at least know that you gave everything that you possibly could, and it's not on you. What is on you is figuring out what's best for yourself. And I know this is going to be challenging, or even something that you might not want to hear, but it is time for you to prioritize your healing journey and figuring out what that looks like. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be challenging. There's a lot of different things that you're going to have to face and work through, but it is going to be so beneficial to you in the long run. You, each and every day that you commit to yourself that you are going to put yourself first, and figuring out what that is and committing to taking those steps is going to help you in the long run. You are going to heal. It's going to compound over time, and you will get to a place where you will feel better and you'll be able to know yourself again and find somebody when you're ready who is going to love and commit themselves to you in the relationship, and it's going to feel natural and healthy in so many different ways. But it starts now in this realization and doing the hard part, which essentially, for the most part, for most people at this moment, is to go no contact with them fully. That means deleting them on all social medias, blocking their number, whatever you know that you need to do to achieve this. That is the first best step, because that's what's going to allow you to get the space away from this person so you can know what you need to do to start to work on this. I hope you did enjoy today's video. If you did, Please make sure to hit that like button if you're new here. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.